and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And we're back to doing a Duel episode. It's been a while. I don't think we've done one since Bronze Tiger, White Tiger. But we've had 2 review episodes in between then and now, and this episode, as a tie-in to our last episode, a review of the film The New Mutants, we will be pitting the character of Deadman against the character of Magik.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this one. You've always been a huge fan of Deadman from Justice League Dark, and for the longest time I had a hard time finding a match for him from Marvel, because they don't really have a ghost character that works in quite the same way as Deadman. But I didn't know that it had to be a Magik person. I remember coming up with Magik early on, and then not thinking much of it, but then when I revisited it, I was like, oh, that's kind of like the perfect match. And Magik is such a cool character, so this is going to be a fun one.
Before we get into the main event, we're going to break down the comic book movie news from the past week, of which this episode is going to be another downer, I'm afraid. We'll be talking about how Robert Pattinson, the Batman, has tested positive for coronavirus, as well as The Rock, who's playing Black Adam. This is all very unfortunate. We'll break it down later on. As always, our segment times are in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
We'd like to thank Marvel and DC Lover 69 for their review of us on iTunes. Guys, you got to stop using 69 at the end of your screen names. It just makes it awkward to say. But we appreciate the review, and just a quick reminder to everyone else to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already, and if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by leaving us a rating or a review like Marvel and DC Lover 69, and leave it on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with your fellow DC and Marvel fans, such as Marvel and DC Lover 69.
Why do you keep saying it?
But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was, what Marvel or DC actor's death affected you the most? And what did that actor mean to you personally? We're recording this episode a little bit early, so we don't have the number of answers that we usually do, but the answers we did get were very touching.
Yeah, with Labor Day weekend coming up, we decided to record this podcast on Saturday morning as opposed to our usual Sunday night. But thank you very much to everyone who reached out to us. Let's go down our list of honorable mentions.
Our first honorable mention goes to John Speas, who said, I'm going to say the first one I can remember that hit me harder than I expected, and that's John Hurt from V for Vendetta. Hurt was an amazing actor who'd appeared in so many great and iconic roles that ran the gamut of genre, a true craftsman. I gotta say, that one really hurt me as well. And like you, not just for V for Vendetta. I think my most favorite role of John Hurt is probably the Elephant Man.
Yeah, I liked his work in Hellboy. I thought that was really good. Truly a great actor. Our next honorable mention goes to Richard McGrew, who said that he was most affected by the death of Stan Lee. Because for him, Stan Lee was one of the main reasons that he is the person he is today. Stan's stories and characters helped shape Richard's morals as a human being, and his stories also helped him learn how to read, which I don't think is often said enough. Comic books are an incredible medium for teaching children how to read and providing context visually through the illustrations that pair up with the text that they're reading.
And the same could be said about, morality. Comic book writers of a lot of these titles have a big responsibility because these popular characters are among children's first exposure to the concepts of right and wrong.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't be a Green Goblin, kids. Be a Spidey.
Our final honorable mention goes to Adam Speas, John Speas' brother, both hosts of the Blast from Our Past podcast, who said, I will be going with Heath Ledger. He died before The Dark Knight released, and that movie showed us exactly what potential he had as an actor. The Dark Knight is so many people's favorite comic book movie for a reason, and Heath Ledger is a huge part of that reason, maybe the biggest part.
Yeah, I find that when an actor dies in his prime when he's young, it's inherently more tragic than an actor who lived a long life and had a sprawling career. Like Chadwick Boseman, Heath Ledger's death was tragic beyond words, because they still had so much potential to affect the world in the same way that Stan Lee or John Hurt did.
Yeah, I remember the death of Heath Ledger hit me particularly hard when I first heard about it. I think a lot of the tragedy of his death came from the fact that his death came across as just so unnecessary. Like it was just an accident, mixing sleeping medication with pain relievers.
Yeah, not that any of these deaths were necessary, but there's a difference between, losing a 4-year battle to cancer and accidentally mixing too much medication.
Before we give the winners of this week's No Prize, we want to give a quick thank you to everyone who sent us an answer, including John Starosky, Michael Haggerty, Miggy Managian, Paige Barger, Salvador Martinez, and Kevin Odilon.
Yeah, thanks again for reaching out, guys. The winners of this week's No Prize are JP Lunai and Ben from Twitter. JP Lunai said that he was hardest hit by the recent death of Chadwick Boseman because he was a true testament of humility, strength, and courage. He gave us some of the best performances playing historically impactful black characters, all while battling his own demons. And JP said that personally, Chadwick gave him the opportunity of seeing a superhero that he could see himself in. To him, Chadwick will forever be the Black Panther T'Challa.
Yeah, I think he will be for a lot of people. I'm still kind of torn on whether or not I want the role recast. We'll see what happens in the future. Our second No Prize winner, Ben from Twitter, said that he didn't have a very good relationship with his dad before he died. Some of the best times they had were when they watched Adam West's Batman 66 on Nick at Night. When Adam West passed away, it brought out and helped him process some of the emotions he had never dealt with when his dad died. And I could totally relate to that. You know, Joseph and I, our father passed away about 3 years ago now.
Yeah, almost to the date.
And we didn't have the best relationship with him. Personally, I think sometimes my No Prize drawings kind of help me deal with that because he's the one who really taught us to draw. And in regards to Adam West, I know a lot of people looked up to him. Ben wasn't the only one who gave Adam West as his answer. He was Batman to an entire generation. And it was always kind of tragic how his acting career turned out. He couldn't get more roles because everyone just saw him as Batman.
Yeah, I know that Michael Haggerty also mentioned his role as the Grey Ghost, which was a side character in one of the Batman the Animated Series cartoons. And that was a touching performance that he gave on that episode because he played a superhero actor who was past his prime. And the depth of emotion that he gave to that performance just showed how gifted he was as an actor. But congrats again to JP Lunai and Ben on Twitter. You guys win this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so earlier this past week, we learned that production on Matt Reeves' The Batman film was stopping because one of the members of production tested positive for coronavirus. And later that day, it was Vanity Fair who broke the news that the person who tested positive was actually its star, Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, of course it was. Of course it was. That's just how 2020 works out.
Exactly.
It's going to be like a grip who might be able to be replaced so that production can continue, but it had to be its star, which would halt production. And that sounds actually kind of insensitive because we don't want anybody to get coronavirus.
Right.
But when your star player gets it, it impacts the production just all that much more.
And they weren't in production for very long after their huge coronavirus-related hiatus. So for this to happen again so soon was also pretty unfortunate. I remember when I first learned the news, I went to Twitter right away, and of course, Not Robert was trending, and you could just see how devastated everyone was by the news. I think because the number of cases of coronavirus is kind of dipping in a lot of countries, that people have kind of assumed that we're through it.
And that was the same mistake that the U.S. made in May when we had our first dip.
Yeah, and I think because it's still going on, I'd be surprised if Warner Brothers wasn't like testing everyone every day.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
And who knows if Robert Pattinson is the only one to have tested positive. Now, apparently production still has 11 weeks left of shooting. With a 2 or 3 week delay, if all goes well, they should still be able to finish before the end of the year and make their October 1st, 2021 release date. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about Robert. Again, we don't want anyone to get this virus. We know it affects different people in different ways. The Rock, who's playing Black Adam, also tested positive. And he seems like a fairly healthy individual. It took him 3 weeks to fully recover. And he said it was really, really hard. His entire family got it.
Yeah, apparently his daughters didn't get much more than a sore throat because it doesn't affect young children the same way that it affects adults. But apparently he was knocked on his ass. He said it was one of the hardest sicknesses that he's ever gone through. Which means I'm fucked if I ever get it. I really hope I don't get it.
I mean, you and I are the same age as Robert Pattinson. He's 34. The Rock is a little bit older. He's pushing 50. I think he's actually 48. So not too much older. But I'd like to think, in training for the Batman, Robert Pattinson, is most likely a healthy individual.
Yeah, here's hoping him a speedy recovery. These DC guys need to start wearing their masks. I don't know what it is about these anti-masker DC guys.
The Batman mask, you need to show his mouth. But no, that was a big message that The Rock pushed when he revealed that he had COVID was, make sure you're wearing your mask, make sure you're staying healthy, make sure you're staying on top of this. And that's just something I want to reiterate to everyone, because if Batman can get coronavirus, so can you.
Not me.
Especially you.
Yeah, we're not out of this yet, guys. Continue keeping up your social distancing and all the other measures that you're taking to make sure that you guys don't catch this, because we don't want any of our listeners to. And if you have, we hope you got through it okay. And if you currently have it, stick in there and get well soon. Our condolences to everybody who's lost somebody during this pandemic.
There's not much more to say about this. We're still learning more as the story develops. And of course, we're recording this episode a little bit early. We don't have a great question of the week to tie into it, but we do have one. But, what is your favorite live-action Batman costume?
Yeah, we were recently introduced to Pattinson's costume at the DC Fandome. Got a pretty good look at what his costume looks like. I think enough to accurately gauge for ourselves how it compares to the previous Batsuits that have come before. So post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. So yeah, again, a slow news week this week, but we'll have quite a bit of news in our next episode because that's when the next DC Fandome event will take place.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But that does it for the news. Let's get into the duel portion of this episode, where we pit DC's Justice League Dark Ghost, Deadman, against Marvel's New Mutant Sorceress, Magik. Okay, so Deadman versus Magik. Again, as Joseph mentioned earlier this episode, I'm a big fan of Deadman. I've always wanted to do a duel with him. We just never knew who we would pit him up against in Marvel. For a while, we were thinking like Shadowcat, but that didn't quite seem to make sense.
Yeah, and ultimately it came down to who could hurt whom, because Deadman needed somebody to go up against him that could actually hurt him. And Magik needed to go up against somebody that she could actually hurt, because Magik's soul sword can only affect magical beings.
What?
Her sword doesn't affect anybody non-magical.
Interesting.
So it was kind of like that puzzle piece that fit in just right that made us realize that Magik is the perfect character to go up against Deadman. And I think it'll be pretty interesting, considering that I think Magik has a wider variety of powers, but Deadman kind of has like the ultimate power, which is intangibility, invisibility, and possession. It's really hard to affect him.
Right.
And I think Magik is going to have a hell of a fun time doing that.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. If you've never listened to one of our duel episodes before, the way we determine a winner between these two characters is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations using the character's statistics. What's a Monte Carlo simulation? Well, it's a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling.
In our case, it randomizes statistics along a normal distribution, which is a bell curve, as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters we use are based on the official Marvel Power Grid, and we use that criteria to extrapolate the DC character stats. We've included some additional stat categories of our own, such as range, damage potential, and perception, in order to create a more complete and robust simulation.
Now, running these 1,000 simulations gives us a percentage of wins for each character, and we declare the one with the higher percentage to be the ultimate victor, given that they're more likely to win any given battle. No character ever wins 100% of the time. Comics have shown that there's always a way for Batman to defeat Superman, for example, though according to our numbers, he'd only win 7.9% of the time. We feel our method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the comic book stories.
And we use this method because it was the least subjective, most unbiased way to determine who would win. Of course, Jonathan and I are both heavily biased toward our respective allegiances, and instead of debating these matches forever, we just let the math decide for us. So there's no fan votes here, and no relying on just character feats.
Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each character's histories and abilities before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the 1,000 simulations we run would play out beat for beat.
Yeah, and I think it's your turn to go first this episode, Jonathan, so let's go ahead and learn all about the character of Deadman.
All right, so Boston Brand and his twin brother Cleveland were accomplished trapeze artists, though Cleveland eventually retired from the dangerous profession to start a family. On his own, Boston cheated death daily, becoming the world's most renowned trapeze artist, performing death-defying acts for both the Hills Brothers Circus and Haley Circus under the stage guise of Deadman, a ghostly, red-clad persona that Boston created to emphasize the danger of his act. During one fateful performance, in front of a typical huge crowd, Boston was killed by an assassin's bullet in midair. As Boston's spirit drifted into the afterlife, his soul was saved by the fictional Hindu goddess of balance and karma, Ramakrishna, who witnessed the murder and granted Boston the opportunity for vengeance. Boston was now a ghost, an actual dead man, capable of possessing anyone, and he used this ability to solve the mystery of his murder, while protecting innocents and correcting injustices he encountered along the way. Eventually, he learned that his killer was a would-be assassin known as the Hook, who was trying to gain admittance into the legendary League of Assassins, which you can learn more about in our Duel episodes featuring the Daughters of the Demon and Ra's al Ghul. Boston was simply a random target, a victim of the League's initiation, though before Deadman was able to get his revenge, the League of Assassins killed Hook themselves. Deadman learned, however, of the League's plan to invade the fabled Himalayan land of Nanda Parbat, a mystic realm of healing inhabited by Ramakrishna herself. To help protect Nanda Parbat, Deadman found and possessed his twin brother Cleveland, who he used to travel to Gotham City to convince a skeptical Batman to help prevent the League's invasion. Batman and Deadman were successful in stopping the League, in part thanks to Deadman's ability to take physical form once again while inside Nanda Parbat. After the ordeal, Cleveland, distraught over what had happened to his brother Boston, allowed Deadman to possess his body for 1 week so that Deadman could train and give one final trapeze performance in front of a live audience before his spirit moved on. During his performance, the League shot Deadman, killing Cleveland in the exact same way they killed his brother in revenge for preventing them from taking Nanda Parbat.
Jeez.
The spirits of both brothers visited Ramakrishna, who allowed Cleveland's spirit to move on in peace, but forced Boston to remain on Earth as punishment for what happened with his brother, and to take up the responsibility of all ghosts, which is to act as a greeter to those entering the land of the just dead. It was in this role that Deadman first encountered the likes of John Constantine, Dr. Fate, Zatanna, and other mystics within DC Comics. You can learn more about those characters in their respective Duel episodes. Together, they formed a short-lived magic-based team known as the Sentinels of Magic during the Day of Judgment storyline when Etrigan the Demon tricked the Spectre into freezing hell, extinguishing its flames and unleashing its demons on Earth. You can learn more about Etrigan and the Spectre as well in their respective Duel episodes. During a mission to reignite the fires of hell, Deadman was trapped under the frozen river Styx, where he was forced to live out a life where the bullet that killed him instead hit him in the shoulder, making him unable to perform his act and leading him into a spiraling depression. After he was rescued by the other Sentinels, he realized he had to die in order to learn how to truly live. During the Blackest Night storyline, when DC's fallen heroes and villains returned as superpowered zombies known as Black Lanterns, the corpse of Boston Brand was reanimated and his spirit was forced to return to its zombie body. Through the suffering of being in a dead body, Deadman was able, nevertheless, to learn that the entity known as Necron controlled the Black Lanterns, as well as what Necron's plans were. With Deadman's help, the remaining heroes were able to save creation through the white light of life, which also restored Boston's body back to life and made Boston a White Lantern. Alive and operating as an agent of the white light, Deadman re-examined his past life from when he was alive and came to the realization that he was an arrogant and selfish man who didn't care about others until he became a ghost. He fell in love with the hero Dove, who you can learn more about in our Hawk and Dove vs. Cloak and Dagger episode, and he made the ultimate sacrifice, protecting her from a lethal boomerang thrown by Captain Boomerang. Dying, Deadman transferred his white power ring to Swamp Thing, who removed the last remnant of Necron from the planet, and Deadman became a ghost once again, unable to have a relationship with Dove. In the New 52, post-Flashpoint continuity, Boston was an only child raised in an abusive home, so he ran away to join the circus, but suffered from alcoholism and violent tendencies. When he was assassinated, Ramakrishna prevented Deadman from reincarnating into the next life until he made up for his past sins as a ghost. Deadman would later join the Justice League Dark alongside John Constantine, Zatanna, and others to fend off supernatural, magic forces threatening existence that the likes of Superman and Batman couldn't stop themselves. Powers-wise, Deadman has no physical form. In his ghost form, he's invisible to all but the most magically aware. He's intangible, he can teleport across different planes of existence, he can fly, and he's capable of duplicating himself, allowing him to possess multiple beings at once if he concentrates hard enough. When he is in possession of someone, he has full control of their body, to which he lends his superior acrobatic agility, though he is limited by the body type of the host. If the host body dies, he does not, and when he leaves their body, the person he possessed has no memory of what occurred during Deadman's possession. And that's Deadman.
You know, I've always really liked Deadman. You know, for a DC character, to me, all DC characters are like the JV squad. But Deadman in particular was always so interesting because there's really no other character that's like him. Like, what other character is basically a ghost?
Right. But I think similarly, there's no one quite like Magik either.
No, absolutely not. She's definitely a very unique character. Let me go ahead and get into her backstory. Now, Ilyana Nikolaevna Rasputina grew up on her family farm in Siberia, Russia. She was the youngest of 3 siblings, including her older brothers, Mikhail and Pyotr, aka Colossus, whom you can learn more about in our Metal Men vs. Colossus Duel episode. All of the Rasputin children were mutants, a seeming coincidence that was in fact orchestrated through eugenics experiments and selective breeding by the Soviet government and the X-Men villain, Mr. Sinister. When the eldest sibling, Mikhail, seemingly died in an explosion that sent him to another dimension, Pyotr vowed to protect his 7-year-old sister no matter what. His organic steel skin powers, in fact, awakened during his attempt to save Ilyana from being killed by a runaway tractor. It was this heroic act that caught the attention of Professor Charles Xavier, who was psychically scanning the globe for mutants to recruit into his X-Men team. When Ilyana's brother joined and moved to Westchester, New York, she was left vulnerable without his protection in Russia. And in fact, she was soon kidnapped by the villain Arcade, whom you can learn more about in our Riddler vs. Arcade Duel episode. After the X-Men rescued Ilyana, Colossus convinced Professor X to allow her to stay at his school for the gifted so he could watch over his sister. She became the first non-mutant to study at Xavier's School for the Gifted, though Xavier kept a close eye on her mutant potential, as did a separate, sinister party. One day, while the X-Men were busy, young Ilyana was kidnapped by Belasco, who was the demon ruler of Limbo, a magical dimension outside of time and space. He magically pulled her into his realm in order to corrupt her soul and turn her into an instrument of evil he could use one day to leave Limbo and rule over Earth. Belasco began manipulating Ilyana for several years, teaching her how to be a sorceress in black magic, forever tainting part of her soul and rendering it evil. Eventually, alternate future versions of Storm and Kitty Pryde, who had become trapped in Limbo, rescued Ilyana. This version of Storm was a magic priestess. She tried to save Ilyana's spirit by teaching her white magic. Eventually, Ilyana was able to tap into the light side of her soul to manifest her magic soul sword, and the future version of Kitty Pryde instructed her how to sword fight. After several years of training, Ilyana was now a young teenager warrior sorceress. The 3 ladies attempted to defeat Belasco, though Storm and Kitty did not survive the battle. Ilyana defeated the demon with her soul sword, stopping just short of killing him and further tainting her soul. She exiled him from the dimension and became the new undisputed ruler of Limbo. With her mutant abilities now manifested, Ilyana opened up a portal to teleport herself back to her original timeline and dimension, and she arrived mere seconds after she was initially kidnapped. Colossus and the X-Men were shocked at what had happened to her, but as now a confident young woman and full-fledged mutant, codenamed Magik, she joined Professor X's next generation of heroes, the New Mutants. Alongside her teammates Mirage, Cannonball, Wolfsbane, and Sunspot, she battled threats such as the Demon Bear, the Enchantress, and the Beyonder. Ileana often assisted the team through her teleportation powers and tried to keep the full extent of her sorceress powers and tainted soul a secret. However, during one teleportation trip through Limbo, she and the New Mutants were attacked by demons who wanted Ileana to remain there as the realm's ruler. They provoked her dark side, and she became known as Darkchild, fully encased in magic eldritch armor. She opened a portal to Earth where the demons of Limbo invaded, and after confronting her brother Colossus in his fight against the demons, her pure side reemerged and she cast a spell teleporting all the demons back to Limbo and destroying her Darkchild self in the process. When her eldritch armor was removed, Colossus and the New Mutants found Ileana back as her 7-year-old self, her proper age, before she was first kidnapped into Limbo.
I've heard of the character of Darkchild. I didn't realize that was Ileana.
Yeah, it's her dark side, basically.
Interesting.
Ileana was brought back to Russia to live with her mom and dad for a time, though tragically, the Russian government killed her parents in order to inflict trauma that would reawaken her mutant powers, all in a plot to have her defeat a psychic villain known as the Soul Skinner. She moved back to the X-Mansion to be with her brother, however she soon after became the first mutant to be infected with the Legacy virus, a deadly pathogen released by the villain Strife that was fatal to mutants. Her death devastated Colossus, and he seemingly ended up sacrificing his own life to help facilitate the virus's cure, which had been discovered by Beast, who you can learn more about in our Beast Boy vs. Beast episode. Ileana was later resurrected in Limbo in her corrupted Darkchild form by the demon Belasco, who sought to use her once again. Conflicted that she had all of her memories but no soul, she turned on Belasco and finally killed him, claiming Limbo's throne and embracing her role as its ruler. She sought to reclaim her soul by reacquiring her lost soul sword. Eventually, it was discovered magically hidden within Nightcrawler by another sorceress who tried to keep it safe. He was, for a time, able to summon the soul sword on his own to fight supernatural threats. Ileana regained her soul, but soon after had to relinquish it again to create a spell to banish Belasco's daughter in her bid to usurp Magik as Limbo's ruler. Despite not having her soul back, she helped reform the New Mutants team, who were able to subdue the powerful yet mentally unstable mutant called Legion, who is the son of Professor X and Moira McTaggart. Ileana then manipulated events to open a portal to unleash the demon Belasco's old masters, known as the Elder Gods. She used Legion's extensive powers to help her destroy these beings, and in the process, she finally regained her soul. During the Avengers vs. X-Men arc, the Phoenix Force returned to Earth for its new host, a mutant raised by Cable known as Hope Summers. Iron Man was able to shatter the Phoenix Force's essence upon its return into 5 fragments which went into 5 of the X-Men, including Ileana and her brother Colossus. Colossus eventually saw how Ileana and himself were becoming corrupted by the power, and the siblings fought, knocking each other out, relinquishing their Phoenix Force fragments. Later, in an effort to prove to Colossus that she wasn't worthy of his love, and to show him what it felt like to be damned like herself, Ileana manipulated her brother into taking on the power of the Juggernaut's magic Crimson Bands of Cytoric. He struggled heavily with his new dark, destructive power, but she later removed the demon entity's curse by teleporting him to Limbo and removing the bonds. Though the siblings weren't on good terms for a while, Ileana later joined together with Colossus and the rest of mutant kind to form the new mutant nation of Krakoa. And that's her history. Powers-wise, Magik has the mutant ability to teleport through portals that she can create to Limbo, which is a magical dimension outside of time and space. From Limbo, she can teleport anywhere she wants and can even travel through time. In the dimension of Limbo, she's the Sorceress Supreme and has unlimited command of white and black magic. Though on Earth, her magical abilities are more limited, reduced to simple spells, and the summoning of her soul sword and eldritch armor on her left arm, which she can use defensively and with some enhanced strength. Her sword can disrupt spells, fire magical energy, and cut through magical entities, but it only does minor damage to non-magical beings. She has substantial training with the sword from her time in Limbo, and she can also summon creatures from Limbo to assist her in battle in the regular dimensional plane. Finally, her partial demonic soul renders her impervious to psychic intrusion. And those are her powers.
Psychic intrusion, not quite ghost possession.
I mean, same thing, right?
No.
Now let's speculate on how one of the 1,000 simulated matches will go. The winner is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this match could play out. We don't set any rules for this, other than that the characters don't know anything about each other going in,
and they start off about 50 meters apart in an environment that has no bearing on the match itself, because we don't take stats for the environment. Plus, certain characters have advantages in some environments over others, and we want these characters to win on their own merit.
So let's get into it. The characters meet on the battlefield. Who goes first? You know what? I'm not even going to ask that question because I already know Magik is going to go first because she has this kind of like intensity about her. So she's going to start off by summoning her soul sword from her chest.
And then just looking around and wondering where the hell her opponent is. So while she's busy looking around, Deadman just flies straight into her, possessing her body and causing her to punch herself right in the face over and over.
Well, that was a quick match. No, but I distinctly remember an instance where you told me that it's difficult for Deadman to possess someone like Constantine because Constantine has some demonic blood in him. Yeah. Well, Ileana has a partial demonic soul. So I also have a feeling that possessing Ileana will just be like brutal for him. Like he's not going to enjoy it. And she does have a lot of telepathic resistance. So between her demonic soul and her psychic blocks, she's going to be able to force Deadman out of her.
I don't think I like where this match is going. If she does expel him, which I could totally see happening, it's going to take a lot of effort for her to do so. So she's not going to be able to keep that up for the rest of the match. At some point, she will be possessed again.
Well, I mean, Deadman's a fairly powerful entity, so I could see that. Because he's possessed some pretty powerful people over the years.
Gods even.
She forces him out of her, and then she realizes that she was possessed by this spirit. So she summons this incantation, and her eyes like glow blue and fiery, and all of a sudden she can see where Deadman is. She knows that she has to keep him at a distance. So she conjures up this powerful spell and shoots these magical energy blasts from her hand directly at Deadman.
Okay, so normally he's intangible, but this blast could actually hurt him. Lucky for him though, not only can he fly, he's also super agile. So she's shooting magic beams at him, but he's going to be flipping and twisting and rolling through the air like a trapeze artist, dodging those suckers. And before she knows it, he's backhand springed right inside of her body again.
No, he doesn't, because like she sees him flying at her because she can see him now. So she just teleports out of the way. Basically, she creates a portal in the floor that she falls through. Deadman flies through nothing and keeps flying, and all of a sudden this portal appears in the air above him. She falls out of it and slashes him with her soul sword. And since her sword can go through spiritual beings, she just cuts his arm right off.
Dang! Okay. I mean, the thing with Deadman, though, is that his body is really just a mental projection of himself. So yeah, she could cut his arm off, but all he has to do is reimagine himself with an arm again once he recuperates.
Okay, so it's kind of like an ectoplasm healing factor.
Sort of. There's no real healing involved. He could be hurt, he could be damaged, but it's not going to last because he doesn't have like a body that can be damaged. But we'll say that, it'll take him a while to remember to grow his arm back. He may just be shocked right now that she was able to cut it off in the first place.
Right. And while Deadman is shocked, Magik performs another incantation that opens these portals up from Limbo, and all of these like small winged dragons fly out that kind of look like Lockheed from New Mutants. They're these like demon dragons. And there's like 10 of them, and they all swarm at Deadman and start breathing their magic demon fire on him.
Okay, but as these dragons are flying around him, he just possesses one of the dragons, and none of the others know it.
Can he possess a demon dragon?
I mean, sure, yeah, has a simple mind, can't fight back. He's possessed magical creatures before.
Okay.
So in his dragon body, he starts taking out the dragons one by one. He'll like fly up to one of them and then like rip off its head with his claws, and then like burn another one to cinders. Just none of them expect it.
Well, Magik is going to see that one of these dragons is like killing the other ones. So she's going to be like, oh, okay, he possessed one of the dragons. So she's going to pull out her sword and start shooting magic blasts from it at the corrupted Deadman dragon.
But in this dragon form, he's like super agile. So as he's dodging the blasts, he continues to take out the other dragons one by one until they're all gone. And he's the last one left. And now he has a physical form to take on Magik. So as she continues to shoot these magic beams at him, he just like flies past her and breathes fire down on her, setting her aflame.
Okay, well, she throws up this a shield of the Seraphim, which is like a spell that she learned from Doctor Strange. She can summon these magic shields that protect her from this hellfire that's being rained down on her. And as he continues flying through the air, she opens up a portal that he just flies right into, And so she teleports him to fly directly toward her, and she's ready with her sword,
Oh, snap.
slashing right through the dragon's body, killing the dragon.
But not Deadman, because as she's about to slash through the dragon, he just does like a flip out of the dragon, over her blade, and back into her body, possessing her once again. And this time, taking the soul sword to herself, like seppuku style.
That's not gonna hurt her. I mean, she summons the soul sword from her body anyway.
Dang it. That'll probably just hurt him.
Yeah, he just forces himself out of her body.
Oh, that's stupid.
And Magik is just done messing around now. So she creates a giant portal that teleports both of them now from whatever environment that they're fighting in into the magical dimension of Limbo.
Right, you can't control the environment.
No matter where they're fighting, she can take this fight to Limbo. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Interesting.
And you're gonna die. Because Limbo is Magik's realm. She can basically do anything she wants there. She's nearly omnipotent. She has full command of her black and white magic.
I don't like this.
Which means that in Limbo, she can render him tangible. So he's no longer intangible and he can be physically hurt.
All right.
And she summons like this whole legion of demon creatures that just surround Deadman, pounce, and dogpile on him, just eviscerating him.
Okay, but just as they start attacking, Deadman reimagines himself as a legion of Deadmen, like 5 times the size of the number of demons that are attacking him. So half of this Deadman Legion is taking on the demons, just like fighting back against them, while the other half of the Deadman Legion are surrounding Magik.
He could create his own army of Deadmen?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, if he concentrates hard enough, because he has to be able to mentally control each individual Deadman.
Gotcha. Okay, and half of this army is surrounding Magik.
That's right, and they all leap at her at once and just start beating the crap out of her.
Well, as they start closing in on her before they could even leap at her, she summons like these big giant demons, these like Balrog from Lord of the Rings looking motherfuckers, who start like swinging their fire whips and just start incinerating them. These dead men are just like cannon fodder to these powerful demons that Magik has control over.
Okay, so, I mean, Deadman probably learns pretty quickly that he's not much of a match for Magik in her own home turf, essentially.
Yeah, no one is.
But Deadman is able to traverse the planes of existence between the living and the non-living realms with ease. He does that all the time. So as things start getting really bad for him, he just phases back into the mortal plane.
She could see with like a scrying glass exactly where he went, so she just teleports back to his location. And she teleports up to him by surprise, stabbing him with her soul sword for the final time, absorbing his soul into her sword, ending this match.
Wait. She could absorb souls with this sword?
Yeah, that's one of the things it could do.
Well, joke's on you. That was one of the duplicate Deadman. The real Deadman pops up behind her, possesses her, and this time she's just too weary from battle to fight him off, and he just uses her own hands to twist her own neck, killing her. And now she's hella dead.
Okay, so either Deadman gets absorbed by the soul sword, or he does manage to possess her and twist her own neck.
Yeah.
We'll say those are the two possible outcomes for this speculation, but let's find out who the true winner of this duel is by running our 1000 simulations. We'll be right back with the winner.
That was a crazy, fun speculation.
Yeah, just like I was hoping it would be.
When it came down to the stats, I was actually kind of surprised how Deadman turned out. Because he has no physical form, I thought he was going to be low on a lot of these stats, but he wasn't, surprisingly. But neither was Magik either. They varied in quite a number of stats.
Yeah, you could tell these are definitely unique characters by the way their stats turned out. I don't think we've ever had results that have looked quite like this. Because they weren't really too even on much. And Deadman was like really powerful on some things, such as evasiveness, and really low on other things, such as strength and damage level. Whereas Magik ranked highest in fighting skill and damage level and movement speed, since she can teleport. But I feel like both of these characters were just all over the board. Magik definitely had the advantage in range. Deadman absolutely had the advantage in evasiveness because not only is he incorporeal, he's also agile.
Right, that's his thing. So based on all of these stats, who do you think came out on top?
I honestly could not even tell you because of the very nature of these stats. It's hard to visualize how they would average out and compare to each other. So I have no idea.
Yeah, usually I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of who I think would win. But yeah, like you, I don't have the mental faculty to figure this out in my own head.
And since we're recording this episode early, we can even go off of our listener survey to help steer our speculation. I'm really excited to see how these polls turn out on Instagram and Facebook and who our listeners think will come out on top.
But if you had to choose a winner, gun to your head, gun to your balls.
Magik.
Magik?
Magik. I'm not going to say Deadman.
Okay. Well, my friend, based on 1,000 simulations, the winner of this week's duel is not...
You can't do that.
Magik won.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, you scared me for a second there.
Magik won 620 out of the 1,000 matches. Deadman won 380.
Okay, so it wasn't that close of a match for this particular episode, which, honestly, nothing would have surprised me. If you told me that Deadman won 600 battles out of 1,000, I wouldn't have been surprised. It's just so hard to know when you're dealing with these magical, unique characters.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised either, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I am a little heartbroken, because Deadman is awesome, and I didn't want to see him lose by that much.
Yeah, it just means he's a shitty character.
What? Yeah, just wait until the Justice League Dark movie or TV show comes out. It's going to be so much better than New Mutants.
Maybe. Who knows?
But I think that does it for this duel. Let us know what you thought about the results by writing into us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page where we offer bonus content. Be sure to check out patreon.com/dynamicduel right after this episode. Our lowest tier is only $2 a month.
Also on dynamicduel.com is a link to our merch store where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel No Prize artwork. And this week, I'll be drawing Deadman.
I feel like that'll be a pretty easy drawing, I think, because there's not a whole lot to his costume, which is kind of what makes it so classic.
If you ever go onto our Instagram and you take a look at the behind-the-scenes time-lapse for these No Prize illustrations, like the coloring is always done in like 1 second. But in reality, that actually takes a majority of the time. I'm not sure why the time-lapse is exported in that way. But yeah, Deadman is basically all red, so it should be pretty quick drawing.
All red with white face. Are you going to give Deadman abs as big as you gave Magik?
Oh my gosh, everyone brings up the abs in my drawings. Why?
Well, I think because they were exposed on Magik's drawing and because they were like stacked as hell.
The torso is like the hardest thing to draw. I have to draw those abs so I know what the torso is doing. Don't be jealous, dude. Don't be jealous. I'm not here to draw sexiness. I'm here to draw anatomically correctness.
In our next episode, we will be reviewing the animated DC film that came out, Superman Man of Tomorrow, which is an early Superman story where he goes up against the likes of Lobo and Parasite. It should be really fun.
Yeah, right now the speculation is that this will kick off DC's new animated universe. So I'm really looking forward to it.
We want to remind everyone again to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or a review on your platform of choice. Sharing the show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, and John Speas, for helping us make this podcast possible.
And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up and away.
True believers.
My name's Alex, main host of Hold My Controller, alongside my friends Harry and Fritch, a podcast dedicated to the latest news and strategies for first and third-person shooters. We believe the only way to improve your gameplay is to learn from the best and to play the game. Episodes are released on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Our average podcast episode is 29 minutes long. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app.